Hello, my name is Trevor, and today we're going to dive back into Hyperborea 3rd edition and take a look at the Thief and its 5 subclasses. So get ready to sneak up behind your opponent and stab him in the back, today on Rolling with Advantage. Now today, before we dive in and take a look at the Thief and the subclasses that are attached to it, I do want to put a disclaimer out there that if you're new to this game, don't overlook the principal classes. The way that Hyperborea 3rd edition is set up is that you have 4 principal classes, and then there are subclasses off of each one of those. A mistake a lot of players make, especially ones that are new to the game, is they look at these and they think, oh, these are the beginner classes, I don't need to play that, I'll play something more specialized like a subclass. However, that's absolutely not the case. These classes, while are more, dedicated to what they do, they're not exactly what I would consider to be beginner classes. They're actually very, very, very good. In fact, the Thief does something a little different than anybody else in the game, or actually a little bit better. So let's take a look at the Thief, and let's see why you might consider playing that, and then we'll kind of spread out and take a look at all of the different subclasses. So first, let's take a look at the Thief. So when you talk about an OSR, an old style game that kind of goes back to the original D&D, and Hyperborea is a beautiful port of that type of a game style, the Thief traditionally does a few things that you can't find in other classes. And that is generally with certain skills. And what we see with the baseline, the principal Thief, is that they have all of those tools at their disposal. They also level faster than any other class in the game. So they will hit higher levels faster than their counterparts, and it kind of helps them get to do certain things a little bit quicker. So that is definitely something to take a look at, and make sure that your DM, are you playing the game where everyone levels at the same time, or are we actually keeping track of experience? Because if that's the case, then the Thief will actually excel because he'll level a little bit faster than his counterparts, and depending on the other classes, he may level a lot faster. So when we take a look at the Thief, all of the Thief and all of the subclasses, they all generally want to have a pretty good dexterity. They're nimble, they're quick on their feet, they generally have lighter armor, so getting a defensive bonus for having a higher dexterity is good. We're also going to take a look at the fact that most of these classes would probably benefit from dual wielding, having 2 weapons out at once, which means that having a higher dexterity makes that easier as well. So for your Thief, you get a D6 hit die, so you're not going to have a ton of hit points, so maybe having decent constitution is not a bad idea either. You do have the ability to wear light armor, and you can use small shields. So you could do a short sword and a shield to kind of help you, just depending on the style of play that you want for your Thief. They have a variety of weapons they can use, from hand axes, crossbows, bows. There's a ton here, scimitar, and various swords that you can use. Interestingly enough, they can also use a trident, which I think would be pretty interesting. Also, you get a +2 save against device and avoidance, which makes sense because these are the people that are going in looking for the traps and things like that in the dungeon. So having a bonus to device and avoidance because they're quick on their feet makes perfect sense. They get a +1 AC bonus when unarmored and unencumbered, but they can use their shield. So if they get caught in a situation where they have no armor or anything like that, and they have a little bit of defense, again, going to the fact that these characters are generally very quick on their feet. Now, Backstab. Backstab is a great ability. It works a little bit different than a modern game like 5e D&D. You don't just get to use this every single turn. You have to have certain things trigger in order for the Backstab to work. You have to use a class 1 or 2 melee weapon, and basically all that means is that you have to be using a smaller weapon. Dagger, short sword, things of that nature. The target must be unaware of the attack, which may be the result of hiding or moving silently. Also, the target must have vital organs, so a skeleton, zombie, etc. are exempt, and they have to have some type of a back. So a green slime or a purple worm wouldn't work. If the requirements are met, the following benefit is a result. They get a +4 to their hit, which is huge, and they also do additional damage dice. So if you're attacking someone with, let's say, a short sword, and you do get the Backstab off, a short sword does a d6 damage. If you're levels 1 to 4, you're going to do double, so that's 2d6, and then it goes up from there. Levels 5 to 8, we get triple, and 9 to 12, we get quadruple damage. damage. Other damage modifiers are added afterwards, so if it's a +1 short sword or things of that nature, you get to add it as well. Okay, so this is not something that you're going to be pulling off every single turn. This is something that you have to kind of set up, that you have to kind of sneak around, and the idea is that this is a surprise attack-ish. So you have to kind of plan around that. So the idea behind this is it's something that you can kind of, jump in and do maybe at the beginning of combat, or maybe you've maneuvered yourself around, you've spent a turn kind of sneaking, getting in position, and then running up and stabbing someone when they don't see you. All of those things can work. But you have to kind of, you have to think more about it than you would in other games where you simply just say, hey, I'm behind them, so I get to, backstab or whatnot, sneak attack. All right, so the other big thing in this game, and this is the progressive thief abilities. There are certain things that they get to do that thieves, unless you're playing a thief, you just can't do, or it's extremely hard to do. They also get the ability to have secret doors. They can find secret doors in a 3 and 6, so a 50% chance to find secret doors is huge. They get extraordinary, which is a +8% to perform extraordinary feats of dexterity. Again, they're extremely nimble. They can speak the thieves' cant, which we're used to seeing. They do get new weapon skills that they get to select at levels 4, 8, and 12. They get enlist henchmen, and then they get lordship, which we see this pretty much with all of the characters in the game between levels 6 and 9. Now, to go back to the progressive thief abilities, all right, they have basically a matrix that they get to roll on, depending on what their level is, that allows them to either climb, decipher script, discern noise, hide, manipulate traps or disarm traps, move silently, open locks, pick pockets, and read scrolls. Now, this is the table 16 here is the progressive thief abilities. And I highly recommend, if you're playing a thief, have this printed out, have it off to your side. Many other classes that we're going to take a look at today will have some of these abilities, or a lot of these abilities. The thief has them all. We'll also see certain classes in the game, like the barbarian, that may have a couple of things like this as well. So we will constantly be looking back at this and say, okay, depending on my level is how good I am at this. Now, to think about the fact that the thief level's faster, which means you're going to get better at these abilities quicker. And these are really the things that parties want to have a thief around for. So to have a character who's going to be leveling faster, get to do what he is meant to do better, quicker, I think the thief is a great class to bring to a party. They're a lot of fun. So that is what the thief brings to the table. A lot of these abilities are extremely good. In a game where having these skills may be hard to come by, you definitely... the goal of these games is really every character needs to feel like they have a place in the party. They have something that their job is what they're supposed to do. So having a character that has this many buttons to push that is specific for them is a really big deal. And I would also tell DMs, make sure that you have adventure set up to where these characters can really shine. And be like, wow, so glad we brought the thief together, or we might have missed this. Those types of things. Reward your players for the characters that they play. All right, so this is the base thief. I do want to just go back and take a look. If you look at the experience points, you only need 1,500 experience points to go from levels 1 to level 2. Most classes you're looking at 2,000, 2,500, and in some case 3,000 experience. So a barbarian needs 3,000 experience to get to level 2. At that point, the thief would be level 3. So you see how much faster the thief can level, and it kind of helps with the power spike of the game, especially early on, that they can actually get to those higher levels faster. Okay, so that is the base thief. Now let's take a look at the subclasses. All right, so we're going to take a look at the 5 subclasses. I'm going to do a quick overview of the classes here, and then we'll kind of dive into them a little bit better and kind of give you some ideas on how to play them. Of the 5, I have seen 3 of these at the table. 2 of them I haven't seen yet, but I've been playing in the game enough to kind of give you my thoughts on what I think is good about them. The Assassin I've seen at the table. They are extremely good, and if you want something who is just really, really good at murdering people, the Assassin is perfect. I love the Assassin. The Bard is probably my favorite of the classes on this table, of the subclasses, because it is, to me, the most unique in what it can do. It pulls magic from both the Druid and the Illusionist class, which I think is very, very interesting. Finally, we have the Legerdemainist, the Perloiner, and the Scout. I have seen a Scout at the table briefly. I have not seen the other 2. The Legerdemainist will be the one that is more of an arcane thief, and the Perloiner is the cleric thief. The Scout is more of the woodsman, and they actually bring some things to the table that are very, very interesting. So now let's take a look at our favorite murder hobo. Let's take a look at the Assassin. Okay, so for the Assassin, you will need a strength, dex, and intelligence of at least 9. Not terribly hard to do. They still get the d6 hit points. They can use any shields. They can use bigger shields, and they have light armor. They have a lot of different weapons. A lot of these are the similar ones we saw with the Thief. There are a couple of extra ones here, like the hooked throwing knife. But there's a few extra things here as well, like the whip, which actually in 3rd edition Hyperborea, the whip is supposedly really, really good. So what we're going to take a look now is once we see his saving throws have a device at +2 and avoidance +2, which is something that we saw with the Thief. Let's take a look at what makes the Assassin really unique in the game, and that is his core ability, Assassinate. Now, of course, they get the Agile bonus that we saw before with the Thief, where they get a +1 to bonus if they're unarmored or unencumbered. But it's really the Assassinate ability that we really want to cue in on, because to me, this is the reason to play this class. Now, Backstab traditionally, for a Thief and all the other classes that have access to it, is a melee ability. That is not true for the Assassin. The Assassin can actually use the Assassinate or Backstab ability with a ranged option. So, whenever they attack with a Class 1 or Class 2 melee weapon with the intent to assassinate, the target must be unaware of the attack, which may be the result of hide or move silently. So all of this is the same. All the prerequisites are the same. Here's where it gets a little different. The attack roll is made at +4 to hit. That's the same as a Backstab. If the target is hit, a second d20 is rolled to verify assassination. If the second d20 roll meets the required target number or less, the target must make a death saving throw or die. However, if the original d20 attack roll was a natural 19 or 20, then there is no saving throw. Normal Backstab damage rules per the Thief class apply, so all of that is the same, double, triple, or quadruple damage. So all of that is the same. If the assassin attempt is made against an assassin of higher level, the chance in 20 of success is reduced by 1 for every level of difference. So it's hard to assassinate an assassin. That's a very cool thing that doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's pretty cool. Alright, so sniper attack. This is what, in my opinion, makes this class so stinking cool. Lastly, unlike the Thief's Backstab ability, the Assassin also can make an assassination attempt with a missile weapon, such as a bow or thrown dagger, versus human, humanoid, quasi-man, or giant. The attempt requires short range. The mark must be completely unaware of danger and not otherwise engaged in combat. The assassin's comprehensive knowledge of their anatomy allows for this specialized termination attempt. Okay, for a couple things here. One, I love random tables. So the fact that this class has a random table I get to roll on whenever I do my Backstab or Assassinate or Sniper attack or whatever. I love this. And I've actually seen this happen in the game. I saw a assassin shoot an arrow and drop a beast man in one shot. It was epic, and the look on the face of my player when this happened was just filled with glee. So this is a super cool ability. And as they level, this gets better. Now, the other thing about this, all the thieves level really fast. If you remember, the thief leveled from 1 to 2 was 1500. You only need 1750 experience to go from 1 to 2. So all the thieves level really quickly, which means he's going to get better at assassinating faster. So this is very, very, very good. They also get other abilities as well, such as detect secret doors. We saw that with the thief. They get the extraordinary ability where they're really good with dexterity, like we saw before. They also get disguise, which is not something we've seen, which is very, very good. The fact that they can kind of like, sneak in and do things like nature. It also makes you want to have a higher charisma with this character, because if the assassin has a 16 plus charisma, the base chance of being discerned is reduced. So it's really easy for them to sneak around and do different things, which is really, really cool. Now, the other thing they get to do is they get to harvest venom, they get poison resistance, they get poison use. So the idea is that this is a character who's going to be like going around harvesting and looking for ways to make different venoms for their assassins. For the tools of the trade, if you will, is very, very cool. We do get to see, there's some rules in here at 9th level where they can manufacture poison if they have an alchemist or a toxicologist available. So I love the fact that we kind of have like a high-end, like, this is where we're going for this character to be able to make, poisons from the lotus kind of thing, which would be really cool. Of course, we get the lordship thing that we see later. Now, For progressive thief abilities, they get the access to climb, discern noise, hide, manipulate traps, move silently, and open locks. So they have a lot of the thief abilities. They don't have the scroll reading that we saw that the thief has, but they do have a lot of the ones that they would need, and all of these are ones that they would need to do the job they're supposed to do, which is to kill people. So I think this is a very, very solid class. I highly recommend the Assassin. It's a lot of fun to play. I've seen this at the table, and they are absolutely deadly. I particularly like playing one as like an archer. A Legolas style, character that can just straight up just murder people from afar is a lot of fun. So highly recommend. Now, we move on now to take a look at the Bard, who I have one in my campaign now. Now, the Bard is the subclass. While it is a thief, it plays, in my opinion, a lot differently than every other thief on here. At least the one that I've seen plays it very differently, and I like the play style. So let's take a look at it. For attributes, they need a lot of attributes. They need 9 in strength, dex, intelligence, and wisdom, and they need a 15 charisma. So depending on how you're rolling for stats, getting the ability to play a bard may be very difficult. If you get a situation where you can play it, I would jump on it. A bard is very, very strong. Now, their hit die is a D8 as opposed to a D6, so they're a little bit hardier than the others. They also can get light and medium armor, and they can use any shield, and they can favor any weapon. So they're definitely more fighter than we see with the other subclasses. They also get the bonuses to device and avoidance, which is the saving throws we've seen with the other thieves. Now, let's take a look at their abilities, because they have some things that nobody else can do. Countersong. So they can actually kind of counter certain enchantments out there. They can react with opposing melodies from things like Gorgons and Harpies. And they have a chance of 9 and 12 to succeed against this. This is really good. It doesn't come up often, but when it does, the Bard feels like a superhero. And it just like I just happen to have this ability. So I recommend DMs out there, create a situation for them to be able to, at least have the ability ready to use. It makes it more fun if they actually if this comes up occasionally. But the countersong is super cool. Now, for extraordinary, they get the same thing we've seen with the other thieves, where they're very good with their dexterity. Folklore. Now, this is one of those things that the DM needs to kind of lean in and let them have a lot of fun with this. They get to identify or recall random fact or sliver of knowledge regarding ancient artifacts, myths, folklore, and other oddities. Whether anything exists to be gleaned, as well as the extent of the veracity of the information, is ultimately the purview of the referee, who should provide a chance in 6 for success, or possibly automatic success if appropriate. I give this automatically a lot, because I feel like the Bard is there to drink and to know things, and in this case, I want them to know things. This is, to me, the reason that you play a Bard, is they just know a lot of things. I'm not saying it's automatic all the time, but generally, it's an easy way for me to give the Bard and the party some information for the story to kind of progress. So I love having this ability there. As the storyteller, I like having Folklore there. They also get to inspirit allies. So they basically can begin a chant, and it's a little wonky how it works, because what they do is they recite poems, and then all the allies get a bonus, a +1 to hit, and in damage for melee. It doesn't work for melee, for ranged attacks and missile attacks. But the boon attacks takes effect 2 rounds after the singing begins. So, and it lasts for a while. So the reason I say it's a little wonky is a lot of people in previous games, they're used to hitting a button, casting a spell, and the effect going off immediately. This one has like a little bit of a ramp up to it, which to me makes more sense. It's more realistic, because, if you're trying to be inspired, it might take a minute for the Bard to kind of get to the point of inspiration in the song or the story or whatever it is that you're trying to do. It makes a lot more sense. So it's not necessarily that it's wonky in the sense that it's a bad thing. It's just different than what a lot of people are used to. They're used to hit a button, get an effect, or this one is hit a button, wait a couple of rounds, then get an effect. It's still very, very good. because bonuses in this game are a little hard to come by. They come at a premium, so having this on tap is fantastic. And there's actually been several times in combat that I've seen where the fight kind of swayed one way or the other based on that extra bonus. So it's very, very good. So just know that when you're playing a Bard, you want to do this immediately, because you're going to need a few minutes or a few rounds for this thing to kind of ramp up and take into effect. Okay. So they also get magic item use, and they get the ability to mesmerize, which is crazy powerful. So once per day, they can recite a song or poem laced with weird vibrations, and basically what they can do is, while they're doing this, they can't take any other actions beside walking, so some people don't like doing it because it kind of restricts them. However, targets must be within 40 feet and have at least animal intelligence or greater. Allies and traveling companions are unaffected. Now, each target is allowed a sorcery saving throw, and those who fail are mesmerized for as long as the Bard continues to perform for up to 1 turn, which is 10 minutes. Mesmerized victims are considered stunned. However, mesmerized effects are broken once a subject is attacked. Okay, so having this to go off on somebody is huge. I mean, it can hit an entire group of people, and then the rest of your party can just go through and just murder everybody. This is extremely powerful. Now, at 3rd level, a single victim's mind can be imprinted with suggestion, just like the spell. The saving throw, of course, negates it, and it ends the mesmerization. However, the fact that this is also kind of like a spell effect where you can use suggestion with this is also very, very good. This can be used something out of combat as well. Now, at 9th level, a single mind can be infected with madness. However, the application of sorcery saving throw negates madness and ends it. So I like the fact that this is a great ability starting at level 1. It gets better at level 3 and just gets crazy at level 9. Like this is an ability that's just good all the way through the game. Bards also get the ability to use scrolls. They can write scrolls, and they also get sorcery. Now, the thing that's interesting about their spell casting is at 1st level they get access to Druid spells, and then it swaps over to Illusionist at level 2, and then it flip-flops every round, or every level up until 9th level. So you're going to go Druid, Illusionist as you're moving up this spell progression, and that's going to make for some very interesting characters, because you're going to have access to 2 very different styles of casting, and you can make some pretty interesting spell selections with this. I think that the Bard, you could probably have, play a Bard in 3 or 4 different games, and they would all be played a little bit differently because you have all these different spell options, which I think is very, very cool. Also, they get Enlist Henchmen at 6th level, at Lordship at 9th level. For the progressive thief abilities, they get Decipher Script, Discern Noise, Hide, and they also get Move Silently. So they don't have as many of the thief abilities as we see with the others, but they do get spell casting, and they get these Mesmerize abilities and the Inspire. So I think the Bard is extremely good in the fact that they have some casting, they can fight pretty well, and they also have some thief abilities. So for those people out there, like my good friend Bob, who always multi-classes, this is the character to play, because it is a multi-class. This game doesn't multi-class. Like, once you choose what you're playing, that's what you're playing. But if you have that person that likes to have a little bit of everything, the Bard is perfect, because they are a thief and a fighter and a caster, and they can heal, and they can do a little bit of everything depending on how you want to play it. So I absolutely I think it's a very, very good designed character. But I do want to take a break, and let's go take a look at some options for the Bard for both the Druid and the Illusionist spells. So what I want to do is take a look at a couple of the early Druid spells that Bards can get to make it pretty interesting. Like at level 1, the fact that they get Befriend Animal, I think is very, very cool. They can kind of start with a pet, or the attempt to try to get a pet. Goodberry is also a solid spell. There's some really good ones here. So is Entangle. All of these are really, really good to start at the beginning. of the game. I also really like the fact that, Speak with Animals is also a very good early level druid spell for a bard, because if they're all about getting information, maybe the animals know something about what's going on. There's, basically it's a spy network that the bard can set up with Speak Animals, which I think is pretty interesting. Once they progress up a couple levels, they get to come back and get another druid spell, because the way it works, it goes druid, then illusionist, then druid. So now let's take a look at the second level druid spell. And this is where they can decide, do they want something more offensive, like Flaming Spear or even Flame Blade, because they can be kind of a fighter, or do they want to go with something like Obscure, or, maybe even something like, Cure Light Wounds, to kind of give, maybe the party needs some healings and buff to healing, so they have that as well. So they also have the ability to get Charm Person or Beast. I love the fact that this spell can hit either or, and it's not two separate spells, so it's very flexible. And I think for a bard, that is a spell that, to me, if I was to play one, I'd want that in my arsenal, just because of the flexibility of it. Particularly if we went with, Befriend Animal or something that we can charm them. I just like the idea of that, maybe you play the bard more like the Fey side of it, where it's more druid, which I think would be very interesting and honestly kind of unique. I haven't really seen that a whole lot in other games. I think it's pretty cool. But let's also take a look at some options for the illusionist, because once your bard gets to level 2, you can move up and start and pick up your first illusionist spell. So for the first level for illusionist, you have great options here. You could do something kind of control-y for like color spray. You can also pick up identify. Now identify is a very good spell. It's more of a ritual in this game that takes time to do. However, having somebody in the party that has access to this is very, very good. You could take something like Terrify, which is a great spell to kind of, again, have some of that control, would be really good. Once you move up in levels as well, and you get to, I believe, at 4th level Bard, you get the 2nd level Illusionist spell, and that's when we can get something really cool like Glitter Dust, which is kind of an area of effect control blind, or you can get something like Invisibility. If depending on how you want it, maybe you're playing more of a, someone that kind of sneaks around more, that's really good. Also, I really, really, really like Blur. Blur is a solid illusionist spell that gives you a defensive capability. If you want to play your bard more of the character who's up in combat more, Blur is fantastic. So many good options here, and I'm just trying to showcase the fact that you can play your bard in a lot of different ways based off of the spell selections that you make. So highly suggest the bard. I think it's a fantastic class, particularly at a table where maybe you've got fewer players, and maybe you need a class that can kind of fill a couple of holes. Like, let's say you only have 3 players at the table. Having a bard can help you kind of, have a mix of different things to kind of help shore up the party in some way. So highly, highly, highly suggest the bard. So now let's take a step back and let's take a look at the Legerdemainist. All right, so this is a class I have not seen at the table yet, but I've played the game enough to feel like I think there's a lot of power with this. Plus, I mean, the Thief Wizard is a trope going back to the earliest days of the Appendix N books. And I think it's very, very strong. So this is a class that they can wear light armor. They can wear, they can have shields as well. You do want dexterity and intelligence for this class. And you also want to have the ability to, really kind of take a look at this, because I feel that this is also a class that all of these subclasses, I think, will do pretty well with decent constitution, because we're going to see lower hit points with these. So this one is a little different. They get a +2 to avoidance, but instead of device, they get a +2 against sorcery. This class levels slower than the other thief classes. What we take a look here is you need 2750 experience points to get to level 2. With the thief, we saw 1500 or even 1750 for the assassin. This one needs a little bit more to level, but it's because you're leveling a thief and a caster at the same time. This subclass kind of is a multi-class. They won't have the spell casting capabilities of a traditional magician. They cap at having 3rd level spells, but that's all. I mean, the fact that you could have a thief who can also cast Fireball or Lightning Bolt is a pretty big deal. All right, so let's go down and take a look. They get the Agile ability, which we've seen with other thieves. They also get the Backstab ability, which they get, but like the Bard doesn't get. So that's very, very good that they get that. So you're a caster who can also backstab. It's pretty cool. They get detect secret doors. They're extraordinary at dexterity like we saw with everyone else. And they also get magic item use, read magic, scroll use, all of these things we'd expect with the casters along with scroll writing. Now, here's the thing that's interesting. Sorcery. They get to pick, when they make the character, which school that they pull from, whether it be something well-rounded like the Magician. Maybe they want to be the Ice Thief and be Cryomancer. They could be more of an Illusionist, which is pretty popular when we see an Illusionist thief. Or we also can go with Pyromancer. Now, the thing that's interesting here is I really like all of these options for the thief. But we'll take a look at the spells in a second, but there's one that I really want to showcase. Thieves can't, they do get as well, and then they can choose new skills, weapon skills at 4, 8, and 12, Endless Hitchman at 6, Lordship at 9. We see that at all of them. Now, for the thief abilities they get Climb, Decipher Script, Discern Noise, Hide, Manipulate Traps, Move Silently, Open Locks, and Pick Locks. Pickpockets. That is a lot of the thief skills. Man, that's almost all of them. So they get a lot of these skills. Now, the thing that I think that is very interesting about this is how you play this is going to be very reliant on which of these sorcery tables that you choose from early. When you create this character, which of these 4 are you going to go? Now, a lot of people, I think Illusionist is probably the one we've seen the most, because in other editions of D&D and stuff we see, and a Thief Illusionist is pretty popular. So, but there's one here that I think is very interesting, and that's Pyromancer. So let me tell you why I actually like Pyromancer a lot for the Legerdemainist. So for Pyromancer, we have to just look at the first 3 levels. That's the highest that this class can cast. So at first level, they can get something like Sorceress Armor, which helps them with defense. They already can wear light armor, so maybe that's not the best option. But I do like the fact that Burning Hands can help you hit like multiple targets. They also can get Identify, which is interesting. They also get Flash, which gives you some type of, some control aspect for your spell. So the first level spell, you just have to kind of pick which ones here you like. There's a lot of decent ones. Like even Decipher Language can be pretty interesting in the hands of the person who's sneaking in and doing things. It's at the second and third level spells that I really feel the Pyromancer is a solid pick for this. One, at second level, a Pyromancer has the ability to have invisibility or levitate, both of which for any type of thief is crazy good. I also really like Flame Web as something to hold something down and burn them. That's very good. Or even Darkness is also extremely good for a thief. The other thing is, this is a class at third level. Once they get to the point where they can cast third level spells, they have the option to get Fireball and also Haste. 2 things that are extremely good for a thief. Or how about Blinding Light? All of these spells are very good to help the thief do the things that they want to do. Get in, get out, and if need be, blow everything up with a fireball. I mean, I think this is a very interesting thing to play. They are a little bit harder to level up. They're slower, but it's because they get access to Fireball once they get up in levels. Now, the only issue is you're not getting as many of these spells. Like once you get past, like they progress like a normal caster up to like 5, where they get at 5. That's when they get their third level spell. But they don't really progress much more than that, other than casting more of those spells. So they are somewhat limited once they get higher up. But the fact that you've got, a character who's going to be doing a ton of damage with Backstab and also can have things like invisibility or haste or something is crazy good. So I think this is a very, very good class that can, again, if you're playing at a table that maybe has fewer players, having someone who can be the thief and the magician at the same time, I think it's very, very cool. So I would be excited to play this at a table. I think this would be very cool. All right, now, the next one we're going to take a look at is the Perloiner. Now, I have heard on many forums in different places that this is probably the most popular of the thieves because it is the cleric. They can do some of the healing and the buffing, and they are also a thief. So I've had a lot of people explain to me like, hey, when you need a healer, they can do that. And then when you don't, they're also a thief. So they do get the benefit of having two of the things that's probably the most needed in the game is some type of healing and someone who has access to the thief skills. So for dexterity, you're going to need high dexterity, you're going to need high wisdom because we're playing a cleric thief, so it makes sense in both those things. They can have light armor, they can have small shields, and they get a splattering of different types of weapons that they can use, axes, bows, daggers, and a variety of swords and things. They get the bonuses to avoidance and also to sorcery, but not to device, which we saw with the thief. For class abilities, they do get the agile ability, they also get backstab, they get detect secret doors, extraordinary, all things we've seen before. But they also get magic item use, scroll use, and scroll writing like we saw with the Legerdemainist. Now for sorcery, they don't get to pick like the other one does. They just straight up get the cleric spells. But that's very good, and we'll take a look at some options for that in a second. Now, for leveling, they level a little bit faster than the Legerdemainist, but they are slower than the Thief or the Assassin, needing 2,500 to go from 1 to 2. Again, this is another class that, like the Arcane version of it, or the Sorcery version of it, they can only go up to casting 3rd level spells. But that's nothing to sneeze at, because we'll see they have a lot of power that they can get to in the 3rd level spells. Other things they get Thieves' Camp. They do get Turn Undead, which is very, very good. They also get new weapon skills at 4, 8, and 12. And we see they get the Enlist Henchman and the Lordship that we saw at 6 and 9 for other classes. Now, for progressive thief abilities, they have options to have Climb, Decipher Script, Discern Noise, Hide, Manipulate Traps, Move Silently, Open Locks, and Pickpocket. So they get a lot of the good thief skills. Now, let's take a look at the actual spell list to see what we get with the Cleric. So they have the ability to have the Cleric spell. So very first out of the gate, they can get Cure Light Wounds at level 1. I also really, really like Command is a solid spell. It's one of my favorites. So for an early level game, even high level, I really love it. They also get things like Light, which Light is one of those spells, depending on the game you're coming from. You may think, oh, that's not that big a deal. But in this game, nobody has dark vision, and light is very, very big. So you've always got to be sure that you either have torches or some way to see in the delves of the deep. And having light is very good. In the 2nd level spells, we have Hold Person, which is very, very strong. I also really like the fact that they can go ahead and start, buffing up their healing and pick up Cure moderate wounds, because by the time you get to the point where you're playing this and you have 2nd level cleric spells, you're at level 3, some things maybe start hitting a lot harder. So I feel that the way I would play this character is I'm a thief who has some healing, and having like options to have, Cure Light Wounds and Cure Moderate Wounds, I think is very good. At 3rd level, now this is what's interesting, they could get Animate Dead. You could almost play this like a Necromancer Thief, which could be pretty interesting. They also get the ability to have another spell, which is very, very good in this game, which is Remove Curse. Remove Curse, Remove Paralysis, and Cure Disease. All of those things are very good. Of the 3, I would say Cure Disease is the most important, only because in the time that I've played this game, I've seen disease absolutely wreck, and having the ability to get rid of it is absolutely huge. So at 5th level, picking up Cure Disease, I think is strong. So I think all of these are very, very good. I like the fact that you have, basically the healing, and you can also just straight up play a backstabbing thief as well. So I highly, highly suggest playing a Perloiner, particularly if you don't have a healer in the party. This is a great one to pick up, because early on they're going to have as much healing as a regular cleric or something of that nature. So at that point, let's move over and take a look at our final subclass, which is the Scout. Now, the Scout, some people look at this and they think it's in a weird place because it's like, why not just play the Thief? The Scout has something that you're going to see that none of the other Thieves have, and I really think it's a great skill to have. But first, let's get in and take a look at the Scout. So the Scouts, they need good dexterity and good intelligence. I would also argue, even though it's not a requirement, that they would want Constitution as well. They get a d6 hit points. They have light armor, small shields, and a splattering of weapons. But the most important thing here is they can use a short bow, because in my opinion, my Scout would use a bow or a crossbow or something of that nature. I see the Scout as a range class, and I'll give you why. I believe that here in a second. For saving throws, they get a device +2 and avoidance +2. Like we saw with the Thief, they get the agile ability. Now, alertness. this is something we haven't seen with the other subclasses for Thief. They reduce the chance of being surprised because they're aware of their surroundings. We see this with the Barbarian and the Fighter subclasses, but Alertness is very good. They get the ability to backstab like we saw with everyone else. They get Detect Secret Doors, Extraordinary, and they get something that doesn't come up often, Controlled Fall. This is basically their slow fall ability. This is one of those things that doesn't come up often, but when it does, it can save your life. Detect Secret Doors, 50% chance, basically 3 and 6. And this is interesting. They can determine the depth and grade to ascertain the extent of a pit, chasm, or shaft by dropping a coin or pebble and listening. They can actually tell you something about that. So here's the thing that's interesting. Unless you've ever had a scout at the party, a lot of DMs out there won't realize that this is actually a skill in the game, and they'll just kind of give it to the party. But no, this is actually something that you would want a scout for. They can kind of give you more information about, how deep or, what the grade is of something. They get the ability to disguise, which we saw with the assassin. Now, here's the thing that is the two skills and the reason to play a scout. They are very quick, and they can move 50 feet when lightly armored or unarmored. So what this allows you to do is you can take a shot and run and stay out of melee range of things. This is the character that can run around and kite with a bow, and I think the run and gun style of play would be or run and shoot, I guess, would be a lot of fun. So that's one of the reasons I would pick that. But the reason to take this, in my opinion, is they actually are one of the few classes in the game that can actually track. We see it with the Barbarian, but the Scout does it as well. And I believe there's a few other classes in the game that have it. There's not many. So to have a character who can be the thief and have the thief skills and also can run and gun with the bow and also track, it's a very fun play style. They can get the Enlist Henchman and the Lordship, but they do get a lot of the good thief abilities, particularly Climb, Discern Noise, Hide, Manipulate Traps, Move Silently, and Open Locks. You'll notice they don't have any of the spell casting stuff. This is a straight character. There's no magic involved with this character. Even though they need higher intelligence, I think it's more for the roleplay aspect that they're just a very smart, outdoorsy type character. So I think a scout's a lot of fun. I've actually seen one at the table, and having the ability to track is really, really good. So that wraps up the thieves and the thief and their subclasses. I love this game. I love these classes. I think they're all designed extremely well. So huge shout out to the creator for this. I would like to see more thieves at the table. I think we have more coming in the near future at our game. So I'm looking forward to this game. If you have played any of these, I would love to hear from you to get your feedback. You can leave comments down below in the video, or you can also jump in our Discord, which I'll leave a link down below. So thank you so much for watching and following this amazing game. I love Hyperborea. 3rd edition is an absolute blast. And if you want to hang with us, come join our Discord. And until next time, keep rolling with advantage. Thanks.